The world you see isn't fixed, it's a mirror of what you believe. Ibn Arabi once said that the outer world bends around the inner one, like shadows obeying the light. So if you wish to change your life, don't chase what's outside. Transform what's within. These are the 5 divine steps that unlock that secret, not by force, but by remembrance. Step 1: Awareness. Stop sleepwalking through your days. The first key to creation is to see the pattern you've been repeating. Notice your thoughts, your words, your tone when you speak about your life. Every complaint is a seed, and every thank you is a garden. The moment you observe without judgment, the illusion starts to dissolve. Step 2: Intention. Speak your desire as if it were already done. But speak it to the one, not to the world. The universe listens to sincerity, not noise. Say, Ya Allah, let my purpose serve you through abundance, through health, through peace. Don't ask for wealth, ask to become a vessel worthy of it. Step 3: Alignment. If you pray for peace but live in chaos, your prayer cancels itself. Align your actions with what you seek. When you act from faith, life reorganizes around you. Ibn Arabi taught that the ocean of reality reflects only those who are still enough to see themselves clearly. Step 4: Gratitude. The most powerful form of manifestation is not desire, but thanks. Each time you say Alhamdulillah with feeling, another unseen door opens. Gratitude turns fear into faith, scarcity into flow. What you appreciate expands, not because the world changes, but because your heart begins to recognize what was always there. Step 5: Surrender. The final step is to let go, not in weakness, but in wisdom. When you trust the source, your worry becomes worship. Ibn Arabi said, "The servant's will dissolves in the divine will, and then creation bends toward him as if he commands it." When you release control, miracles start to arrive without noise, without struggle, perfectly timed, quietly certain. And so, the secret is not to manifest your reality, it's to remember who manifests through you. The day you stop fighting to make life obey your plan and begin aligning with Allah's rhythm, you'll see how effortlessly beauty unfolds. Close your eyes tonight. Whisper, "I am ready." Feel that stillness. That is the moment heaven starts to move. Days after learning the 5 divine steps, a man came to Ibn Arabi trembling with confusion. "Master," he said, "I did what you said. I watched my thoughts, I prayed, I gave thanks. Yet nothing changed. My debts remain, my worries multiply. Where is the divine response?" Ibn Arabi smiled gently, motioning for the man to sit beneath the shade of an olive tree. "You have not failed," he said softly. "You have only rushed the harvest." He picked up a seed from the ground and held it up. "When you plant this in the earth, does it sprout in an hour?" The man shook his head. "Then why do you demand from heaven what you would never demand from the soil?" The man lowered his eyes in shame. The master continued, "Faith is not tested when things go well. It's proven when the seed has not yet broken the ground, and still, you water it." Ibn Arabi leaned closer. "The unseen is not empty. Every sincere intention lives there, ripening beyond your sight. When the time is right, what belongs to you will find its way. Until then, your task is to stay grateful, not because the blessing has come, but because you trust that it will." The man's eyes filled with tears. "Then, Master," he said, "what should I do when I feel forgotten by Allah?" Ibn Arabi looked toward the horizon where the sky met the sand and answered, "Remember him first. The one who remembers is never forgotten. The moment you speak his name with love, the unseen begins to rearrange itself for your sake." That night, the man returned home. Instead of praying for his burdens to vanish, he prayed to understand them. He whispered, "Ya Allah, if my delay has a purpose, let me see the wisdom in it. The next morning, his heart felt lighter, even though his circumstances had not changed. He realized that peace was not something he was waiting to receive, it had already entered him the moment he surrendered. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, doors began to open not by chance, but in perfect sequence. Opportunities appeared where there had once been silence. Friends returned, kindness found him, and even his debts began to fade like mist before the morning light. When he sought Ibn Arabi again, he bowed deeply. "Master," he said, "you were right. The moment I stopped begging, my life began to bloom." Ibn Arabi smiled. "It was never the prayer that changed your fate, my son. It was the heart that finally believed it was heard." Then he added, "The 5 divine steps are not a formula. They are a way of walking through the world awake, humble, and grateful. The miracle is not what appears outside you. It is what awakens within." And as the man left, the master whispered to the wind, "Whoever understands this truth never chases reality again, for he has become its creator, through remembrance." Weeks later, the man who had once lived in despair became known in his village as the peaceful merchant. His fortune returned slowly, but his peace grew quickly, and soon, that peace began to draw people to him. Travelers, farmers, even scholars came asking, "How did you turn your life around?" He would smile gently and answer, "By no longer fighting what was already trying to help me." One evening, as the sun bled gold across the horizon, a young boy approached him, barefoot and wide-eyed. "Sir," he asked, "is it true you can change your life just by thinking it?" The merchant knelt down and said softly, "Not by thinking it, by feeling it as already real. Thoughts are wind. Faith is flame. Wind alone cannot light your path." He took a coin from his pocket and placed it in the boy's hand. "This coin will mean nothing if you hold it with fear," he said. "But if you hold it with gratitude, it multiplies, not always in number, but in meaning." That night, the merchant prayed again using Ibn Arabi's 5 divine steps: awareness, intention, alignment, gratitude, surrender. But this time, he added a 6th, service. After all that he had received, he understood that true manifestation wasn't about attracting, but about becoming a channel for others' blessings. He began to feed the poor, sponsor travelers, and repair wells in the desert. Every act became a silent prayer, and soon people whispered that everything he touched seemed to prosper. Yet when asked for his secret, he always answered, "I only stopped asking Allah for more and started asking how to use what I already have." Years later, the man returned to Ibn Arabi older, wiser, his heart calm like still water. The master looked at him and smiled. "Now you understand," he said. "The perfect reality you sought was never outside you. It was waiting behind your impatience." The man asked, "Then what is the highest form of manifestation, Master?" Ibn Arabi replied, "To reach a state where you desire nothing but Allah's will and find that His will was your deepest desire all along." As the sun set behind them, the world seemed to pause. The merchant bowed and whispered, "La ilaha illallah, there is no power, no wealth, no destiny, except what flows from you." Ibn Arabi placed his hand on his shoulder. "Then, my son," he said, "you have found it. The 5 divine steps were not meant to make you powerful. They were meant to make you present. For when the heart is present, the whole universe bows to it." And with that, the master rose and walked toward the horizon, his robe catching the last light of day, leaving behind not a man who had learned to manifest wealth, but one who had learned to manifest peace. Years passed, and the peaceful merchant became a teacher himself. People from distant lands came to sit at his feet, eager to learn the secret of shaping reality. But he never spoke of power, never of control, only of harmony. Reality, he would say, is not something you force. It is something you remember. One winter morning, a scholar visited him, determined to test the wisdom of this so-called saint. "You speak of 5 divine steps," the scholar said. But life is cruel. Children starve. Empires fall. How can your steps change that? The merchant looked at him kindly and poured 2 cups of tea. My friend, he said, the steps do not change the world. They change the one who sees it. He placed the steaming cup before the scholar. When this tea cools, is it still tea? Of course, said the scholar. Then the world is still divine, replied the merchant. Even when it grows cold in our hearts. The scholar frowned. Then what is the point of praying if suffering still exists? The merchant smiled faintly. To remember that the light has not gone out. When you awaken, even your pain begins to serve you. Awareness gives you choice. Intention gives you direction. Alignment gives you strength. Gratitude gives you sight. Surrender gives you peace. And all 5 together return you to Allah, the only place where suffering loses its meaning. The scholar fell silent, his pride dissolving into wonder. And when we forget again, he asked softly. The merchant looked toward the rising sun. Then you start again. Because remembrance is not a destination. It is a rhythm. He rose and said, Come, walk with me. Together they went into the village, where the merchant stopped to give coins to a beggar, water to a stray dog, and a kind word to a weeping widow. These are the true prayers, he said. Not the ones you whisper for yourself, but the ones you live for others. The scholar finally understood the 5 steps were never about manifesting desires, but about dissolving the self until what remains is the divine acting through you. That night, the merchant prayed one last time, Ya Allah, let me not command reality, let me become its servant. Let me be where you need me to be, give what you wish to give through me, and see only you in all that comes. And when dawn broke, he was gone, not in death, but in return. The villagers said the wind carried his voice across the hills that morning, whispering the final truth Ibn Arabi had planted in his heart. You are not here to create reality. You are here to remember that you already are it. Many years later, long after the merchant's passing, his name had faded, but his words had not. The 5 divine steps became quiet teachings shared in marketplaces, whispered in mosques, sung by travelers who never met him but carried his peace like perfume. People no longer knew who first spoke them, Ibn Arabi, the merchant, or another, but it didn't matter. The truth had outlived the teacher. In one small village by the sea, an orphan boy named Yunus found an old parchment buried beneath a collapsed wall. The ink had almost vanished, but 5 phrases were still legible: awareness, intention, alignment, gratitude, surrender. He didn't understand the meaning, but something in the words made him feel awake. He began repeating them every morning as he watched the sun rise over the water. Awareness, he whispered, feeling the cold air on his skin. Intention, as he dreamed of a better life. Alignment, as he promised to work with honesty. Gratitude, as he thanked Allah for the sea that fed him. Surrender, as he released his fears into the waves. He was just a fisherman's helper, poor and unnoticed. But over the years, his peace began to change those around him. The old grew calmer in his presence. Children laughed more. His tiny home became a refuge for anyone who was lost. And one day, a wealthy trader came to him, troubled by endless anxiety. Boy, he said, everyone says you live with peace. Tell me how. Yunus smiled. I live with remembrance, he said. I do not try to command life. I listen to it. He told the man about the parchment, the 5 divine steps, and how he spoke them every morning. The trader wept. I have spent my whole life chasing what you found by standing still, he said. The next morning, they stood side by the water, repeating the 5 steps together. Word spread again, and slowly, the ancient teaching was reborn. But it was no longer called a method or a system. It became a rhythm of life. Years later, Yunus grew old and told his students, "These 5 are not steps to success. They are steps back to the soul. Every time you walk them, you return home." Then, one night, as the moon shimmered on the sea, he closed his eyes and whispered one final prayer. Ya Allah, awaken in every heart what you awakened in mine, that peace is not found in control, but in closeness to you. Let those who seek miracles discover that they were always the miracle themselves. When dawn came, the waves were calm, the air still. His students said they felt something move through the village, not sadness, but clarity, like the air after rain. And for centuries after, the fishermen of that coast still began their mornings the same way, facing the sunrise, whispering the 5 divine words that had once changed the world. Awareness, intention, alignment, gratitude, surrender. Each word carrying the same secret across the ages. You don't manifest your perfect reality, you awaken to the one Allah already wrote for you. Years later, the teaching of the 5 divine steps became not just a philosophy but a living breath inside those who walked the path of remembrance. The story of Yunus spread far beyond his village. It reached cities, scholars, and seekers who were tired of chasing what never filled them. But the essence remained unchanged: simplicity, surrender, and stillness before the source. In the final telling, the old parchment was kept inside a glass case at a small seaside masjid. Pilgrims from every corner of the world came not to worship the relic, but to feel the calm that lingered there, a peace carved by centuries of gratitude. One evening, as the last rays of sunset touched the sea, a traveler stood before the glass, tears in his eyes. He had lost everything: family, fortune, and faith, yet something in those 5 words awakened him. He whispered them slowly: awareness, intention, alignment, gratitude, surrender. The air seemed to soften, and for the first time, he felt no fear. He realized that even though his life had crumbled, his soul was intact. The prayer did not promise him miracles, it gave him remembrance. And remembrance itself was the miracle. That night, he slept peacefully for the first time in years. In his dream, he saw a vast light stretching across oceans and time, touching every heart that had ever spoken those 5 steps: the rabbi, the merchant, the fisherman, Yunus himself. All bound by one truth that never died. Reality is not something to create. It is something to awaken to. When he awoke, the sea was still. The dawn broke quietly, and the first birds began to sing. He smiled, whispering through the cool morning air, "Ya Allah, I surrender to the reality you already perfected. Let me live aware, act with intention, walk in alignment, thank with depth, and surrender with peace. For in that, I find everything I was ever searching for." And from that moment, the chain continued again, not through books or temples, but through hearts that remembered. Because the teaching of the 5 divine steps was never meant to end. It was meant to begin inside anyone who finally paused long enough to feel it.